Let silence be your general rule, or say only what is necessary and in few words. Epictetus. You think sharing will help you heal, but most of the time, it just keeps the wound wide open. You post every update, you vent to anyone who will listen, you explain your life as if it's on trial. And while the world scrolls past your pain, something worse happens. You start believing the story you keep repeating. Stoicism offers a radical alternative. Protect your peace through silence. Not as avoidance, but as power. Because the less you explain, the more you command. And when your words are few, they carry weight. This video isn't about repressing emotions. It's about reclaiming your emotional energy by stopping the oversharing that quietly drains you. You'll discover 10 Stoic lessons that show how silence strengthens discipline, protects your self-worth, and builds quiet confidence. If you've ever felt exposed after opening up to the wrong person, if you've ever regretted giving too much away too soon, you're not alone. The solution isn't to harden, but to become wise. In the next few minutes, you'll learn how to stop narrating your chaos and start rebuilding from calm. You'll speak less, but live louder. Like the video and subscribe now to train your emotional control, protect your energy, and live aligned with your inner truth. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing. 1. You speak badly about yourself, and the world takes note. You walk into a room, smile politely, and before 10 minutes pass, you've already told someone you're bad at relationships, terrible at staying focused, and never finish anything you start. You laugh while saying it, almost like it's a joke, but your mind is listening. The people around you are listening. And what you just did, without knowing, is carve another notch into your identity, one that says, "This is who I am, broken and small." The more often you say it, the more permanent it becomes. Not because it's true, but because repetition makes it feel real. Most people don't realize how much damage they do with casual words. They think a little self-deprecation is harmless. But every time you say you're a mess, a failure, not enough, you're reinforcing a self-image that limits your choices, weakens your discipline, and slowly convinces others to agree. Language, when used without care, becomes a weapon aimed at the self. It doesn't need to be loud to be destructive. Quiet repetition does the job just fine. The Stoics treated words as tools, not decoration. They understood that speaking isn't neutral. It either strengthens you or drains you. Epictetus once asked, "If people speak badly of you and it's true, correct yourself. If it's false, ignore them." But what if the one speaking badly is you? That's not false judgment from others, it's a slow erosion from within. Stoic thinking urges restraint for this very reason. What you repeat, you believe, and what you believe, you become. Think of your words like seeds. If every day you plant, "I'm not good at this," or "I always fail," you're growing weeds in a garden meant for strength. And those thoughts don't just stay inside. They leak into how you carry yourself, how others treat you, how opportunities respond to your presence. What you say about yourself is an instruction to the world and to your future. In that sense, silence is more than avoidance. It's protection. It's choosing not to build your identity with bricks of weakness. It's deciding to speak only when your words align with your highest self, not your wounded self. And when words must be spoken, to make them serve clarity, not complaint. This doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect. It means not rehearsing your failures like a broken record. It means not introducing yourself to life as the one who can't get it together. Your thoughts may still try to sabotage you. That's normal. But what you say aloud, that's where your discipline begins. That's where you draw the line. You don't have to perform positivity, but you do have to stop scripting your downfall. The mind believes what it hears often enough. So give it something worth believing. "I'm learning" carries strength. "I've struggled, but I'm working on it" builds character. "I fail, but I don't quit" carries momentum. The shift starts small. Catch the moment when you're about to joke at your own expense. Pause before calling yourself a disaster. Refuse to be your own heckler. When someone says you've always been like this, you don't need to argue. Just respond, out loud or inside, with, "That was then. I'm not staying there." Because you're not here to live in the echo of old versions of yourself. You're here to rebuild. Not loudly, not desperately, but with quiet confidence, with intention. with fewer words and a stronger presence. And if you must speak, speak like someone who respects themselves. Speak like someone building a life worth inhabiting. Speak like someone who finally understands that every word either sharpens your edge or dulls your soul. 2. Shut your mouth and let your actions speak. The louder the promise, the emptier it tends to be. You've seen it. People announcing their next big change, swearing this time it's different. New routines, new mindsets, new habits. But a few weeks later, nothing sticks. The old patterns return, and the grand declaration fades into just another echo of a future that never came. Words feel productive, but without action, they're just emotional sugar, quick to satisfy, useless for growth. Talking is easy. It gives the illusion of progress. You feel good saying what you plan to do. Others nod, encourage you, and applaud your intention. But that applause becomes dangerous. It replaces discipline. It delays momentum, and eventually you become someone who performs transformation instead of embodying it. The Stoics would call this self-deception in disguise. They weren't interested in how well you could articulate your ideals. They were watching how you lived when no one was around to hear you talk about it. Speech without action is smoke, Marcus Aurelius might as well have said. And smoke doesn't build anything. It just clouds your vision. Every time you speak before you act, you risk weakening your resolve. You spend the energy meant for building on explaining, and explaining is often just a polished way to delay. Picture a builder who carries bricks all day but never lays them down. He's always busy, always planning, always showing others the blueprint. But the house never rises. That's what talking without doing becomes. You exhaust yourself with preparation, with explanation, with public intention, but the foundation remains untouched. Real change doesn't speak, it shows. It's quiet, it's uncomfortable, and it doesn't ask for witnesses. The Stoic understands this. He doesn't talk about self-control. He practices it. He doesn't say he's going to let go of anger. He meets the next provocation with silence. He doesn't perform virtue. He lives it even when no one's watching. Because for him, action is the measure. Not opinion, not admiration, not performance. Just quiet, repeated movement in the direction of strength. If you want to shift this, begin with restraint. When you feel the urge to tell someone about your next great plan, don't. Write it down instead. Let it take root in solitude. Give it space to grow away from validation. If it survives the silence, it's worth showing. Speak only after your action has become your habit. Until then, protect it. The world doesn't need another motivational monologue. It needs more people who lead with consistency. And when you do speak, speak from the place of embodiment, not ambition. A single quiet sentence from someone who lives what they say holds more weight than 100 loud intentions. People can feel when your words come from experience, not theory. They listen more when they sense you've lived what you're saying. Let your silence train you. Let it be the gym for your discipline. It's in the silence that you hear your own resistance. It's in the silence that you meet your real motivation, stripped of applause, stripped of eyes watching. And it's in that space that power is born. Power not to impress, but to endure. To stay consistent, long after others stop watching. To follow through without needing permission. So, when the voice rises in your head saying, "Tell them what you're going to do," pause, breathe. Ask yourself, am I doing this to move forward or just to be seen moving? If it's the second, stay still. Protect the seed. Let your actions mature before your words introduce them. You weren't meant to narrate your life. You were meant to build it, brick by quiet brick. Alone if necessary. Because in the end, no one remembers what you promised. They remember what you became. 3. Your change doesn't need an audience. Real transformation happens in the shadows. It doesn't crave praise, doesn't post milestones, and certainly doesn't wait for permission. Like roots growing under stone, its strength comes from silence and pressure. But today, people announce their healing as if applause is part of the process. They want credit for trying. They need others to see the attempt, even if it fails. And that need alone reveals the problem. When your growth depends on visibility, it's no longer transformation. It's a theater. The gym selfie, the journaling post, the day one announcement of a new mindset. All of it feeds ego, not discipline. You may start with good intentions, But the moment your progress demands recognition, your focus shifts. Now you're performing change, not becoming it. And what's performed is always weaker than what's endured. The Stoics didn't need an audience. They believed virtue was its own reward. That strength lived in the unseen moments. When you wake early and no one knows, when you resist temptation and no one thanks you, when you build self-control without documenting it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that applause is nothing but noise, and if it tempts you, it owns you. When you begin doing things so people can see you doing them, you've already lost the battle for the self. Imagine a blacksmith forging a blade. The process is violent, fire, hammer, grit, but it's hidden in the forge. No one sees it, no one cheers, and yet the weapon sharpens all the same. Change is no different. The audience doesn't strengthen your steel. The fire does, and the silence it demands is part of your growth. If you want your life to shift, stop explaining your intentions. Stop updating people before the habit is even real. Don't post about the book you're reading. Finish it. Don't tell the world you're cutting out distractions. Cut them. Let them wonder where you've gone. Let them feel your absence before they hear your update. Because mystery builds power. Noise dissolves it. This isn't about hiding in fear. It's about choosing integrity over attention. The ego seeks followers. The soul seeks alignment. One is addicted to response. The other is at peace in solitude. Ask yourself, are you sharing for accountability or applause? Are you trying to be consistent or trying to be admired for trying? The harsh truth is this: if your motivation collapses in silence, it was never real. If you need people to cheer you on to stay focused, your will isn't forged, it's borrowed. And borrowed strength always runs out. The Stoic builds something stronger, intrinsic drive, shaped by principle, not praise. From now on, let your silence be intentional. Let it guard your progress like a secret weapon. When people ask where you've been, just smile. When they ask what you're working on, just say, you'll see. Not as arrogance, but as discipline. Because change that's real doesn't need to shout. It just shows up differently one day, and everyone notices. Don't rob your future self of dignity by oversharing your unfinished becoming. Stay quiet, stay grounded, do the work in the darkness. Let your transformation speak in how you walk, not what you say. That's how strength is revealed, through stillness, not spectacle, through practice, not performance, through presence, not posts. And when it's done, if it ever is, say nothing. Let your life be the proof. Let your silence echo louder than their applause ever could. 4. Change the story you tell yourself. Before you change your life, you must confront the narrator in your mind, the voice that explains who you are, what you deserve, and what you can't do. That voice is not fact, it's habit. And for most people, that habit is toxic. It's the story that says, you always mess this up, or they won't understand you, or what's the point of trying again? It speaks softly, but it shapes everything. Your relationships, your work, your self-respect. And if you don't take control of it, it takes control of you. The Stoics understood the mind as the seat of power, not because of its intellect, but because of its interpretation. Epictetus taught that it's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. That means the story you attach to an event causes more pain than the event itself. A failed plan becomes, I'm a failure. A betrayal becomes, no one will ever love me again. That's not the truth. That's narrative. And narratives can be rewritten. Imagine walking through a dark tunnel. You stumble, hit a wall, or even fall. But instead of realizing it's part of the path, you start telling yourself, I must not be meant to finish this. So you sit. You accept the darkness as identity. But what if the tunnel was just that, a tunnel? What if the stumble wasn't proof of who you are, but simply part of the movement? If you change the story, you change the strength to keep walking. The way out begins with awareness. Catch the story in motion. Notice the self-criticism that plays on repeat. Write it down. Separate it from reality. Ask, is this true or just familiar? Most of what you believe about yourself was planted by repetition, not reason. You've lived with it so long it feels like an identity. But identity built on old pain is not you. It's residue, and the residue must be cleared, not obeyed. Rewriting doesn't mean pretending. It means refusing to let weakness narrate your potential. It means telling yourself, yes, I failed, but I'm not a failure. Yes, they hurt me, but I can still love and trust. Yes, it's hard, but I've done harder. Stoic strength is not blind optimism. It's defiant clarity. It sees the obstacle, names it, and refuses to let it define the future. You don't need to shout this change. You don't even need to explain it. Just start living by the new story. Quietly, deliberately. Let your daily actions echo it. If your old narrative said you give up easily, prove it wrong by showing up again tomorrow. If it said you're not worthy of respect, start by treating yourself with the kind of patience and discipline you'd give someone you admire. If it told you people will judge, let them. Let them think what they want. You're not writing their story. You're rewriting yours. Every morning, before you engage with the world, repeat this silently. I don't owe anyone the version of myself I've outgrown. That's the line that breaks the cycle. That's the sentence that reclaims power. Because when you control the narrative, you control the path. Not instantly, not perfectly, but permanently. Let your silence grow stronger than your self-doubt. Let your routine speak the new truth before your mouth does. Stop arguing with the past. Stop explaining your scars. Start walking forward with a mind that serves you, not sabotages you. And remember, you're not stuck. You're just stuck in a story. Change it, and everything else will follow. 5. Understand the power of every word. A word once spoken cannot be retrieved. It leaves your mouth and enters someone's mind, sometimes nesting there for years. That's why the Stoics warned against careless speech, not because silence is more poetic, but because words are irreversible tools. And when used without discipline, they damage not just others, but your own mind. You become a prisoner of your own explanations, your own confessions, your own need to be understood. Every time you explain your pain to someone who hasn't earned the right to hear it, you dilute its meaning. Every time you repeat your struggle out loud, you reinforce the identity of someone still struggling. Words build mental pathways. They don't just describe reality, they create it. If you constantly say, "I'm overwhelmed," you train your nervous system to expect exhaustion. If you casually joke that you always mess things up, your mind starts believing it. Your words are not harmless, they are blueprints. Spoken often enough, they become internal architecture. The Stoics understood that the mind follows speech. Epictetus warned us to speak little and only what is necessary. Not to be mysterious, but to avoid unnecessary entanglement. Each sentence you speak either strengthens your resolve or weakens it. Each explanation you offer either reinforces clarity or feeds emotional chaos. The world wants noise. It feeds on commentary, reaction, and confession. But you are not obligated to feed it with your peace. Imagine your voice as a drop of ink in water. Just one word, and the clarity of your presence can become clouded. That's why restraint isn't about being secretive. It's about protecting your energy from being wasted on what doesn't evolve you. Speaking is easy, but impact comes from silence backed by substance. Words spoken out of emotion are like arrows shot in panic, wild, directionless, and often damaging. But words spoken with stillness, chosen with intention, are like surgical strikes. They land with clarity and cut through the noise. You don't need to announce your growth. You don't need to prove you've changed. And you certainly don't need to narrate every detail of your personal evolution. What you say becomes what you believe. So speak as someone becoming stronger, not as someone stuck in the process. Speak as someone who's building, not someone still breaking. The fewer words you use, the more power they hold. This doesn't mean bottling up emotion. It means choosing when to speak, how to speak, and most importantly, why to speak. Ask yourself before every sentence, does this need to be said? Does it serve clarity, or does it feed confusion? Will it elevate my direction or entangle me in another loop of validation seeking? Start practicing this today. When someone asks how you're doing, don't default to your pain. Say, "I'm managing." That's enough. When you feel the urge to vent on social media, pause. Write it down in a private journal instead. Let your words be processed before they become permanent. When you feel misunderstood, remind yourself, being understood is a luxury, not a requirement. The deepest peace comes not from being explained, but from being anchored. You reclaim immense emotional energy when you stop explaining every feeling, every move, every choice. You begin to develop a calm presence, a quiet confidence that doesn't beg to be seen because it is built on truth, not performance. Your emotional independence grows when your words shrink to what truly matters. Speak less means more. Because your words are not just expressions, they are declarations. Use them with the same care you'd use a weapon in close range, because once they leave you, they shape both the listener's perception and your own. And once you understand that, you no longer speak to impress or explain. You speak to align, quietly, powerfully, intentionally. 6. Not everyone understands what you carry inside. You can look completely fine and still be carrying storms inside. A smile can hide years of unspoken grief. A calm tone can cover the wreckage of betrayal, loss, or silent battles no one ever saw. The world often judges your strength by what you show, never realizing the weight you've chosen not to unload. That's the mistake people make. They assume what's visible is the whole story. But you know better. You've walked with wounds under your shirt. You've kept going while no one clapped. You've stood up again without ever explaining how badly you were knocked down. Stoicism doesn't ask you to be emotionless. It asks you to master your response, to hold the line between what hurts and what guides. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." And this is where most people fail. They want understanding from the outside to justify the chaos inside. But you don't owe anyone an explanation for how you survive your private wars. You don't need someone else to validate the storms you've weathered in silence. Silence in itself is proof of power. Trying to be understood is often just another trap. When you beg to be seen, you hand your power to those who might never understand you. And worse, those who may use your vulnerability against you. Some people aren't equipped to hold the depth of what you feel. That's not cruelty, it's just limitation. Not everyone has earned the right to your truth. Some only listen to judge, not to understand. Some only ask questions to fuel gossip, not to offer help. You have to protect your peace by recognizing who deserves your inner world. Imagine your emotions like sacred scrolls, not to be thrown on the table of every conversation. They are not casual content, they are sacred data. Not everyone can read that language, and some shouldn't. That is not emotional detachment, that is emotional intelligence. What you carry is not weakness, it is proof of inner strength. You've managed to live with pain and still show up. You've held your rage without letting it poison the room. You've handled disrespect without screaming for revenge. That's not repression, that's restraint. And it's far more powerful than any public display of breakdown. True strength is when your world is falling apart and you still speak with kindness, still walk with dignity, still choose clarity over chaos. The Stoics remind us that suffering is universal, but reaction is personal. You can't stop life from hurting you, but you can stop others from defining you by that pain. Keep your healing sacred. Protect the parts of you that are still raw. Share your truth only where it can grow, not where it will be judged or exploited. Your inner battles are not public entertainment. They're sacred fires, and silence is the shield that guards them. Every time you choose not to explain, you claim a layer of peace. Every time you breathe through instead of breaking down, you develop unshakable emotional discipline. And every time you refuse to overshare with the wrong ears, you elevate your presence. What you carry inside is yours, not because you should hide, but because you should honor it. That quiet strength, that silent endurance, is something few will ever understand. And that's okay. You weren't meant to be explained. You were meant to be lived. So instead of seeking sympathy, build stamina. Instead of narrating your pain, refine your power. Instead of begging to be understood, become unbothered by being misunderstood. That is where emotional freedom begins. Not when they finally get you, but when you no longer need them to. Let your silence speak. Let your composure unsettle. Let your peace be louder than your pain. That is Stoicism. That is mastery. That is you rising, quietly, intentionally, completely. 7. Saying it might calm you, but doing it transforms you. A person can whisper 1,000 promises to themselves in the dark, but until one step is taken, nothing changes. You can talk about boundaries, healing, clarity all day long. It sounds strong, it feels soothing, but it's only noise until it becomes movement. You might calm your nerves by saying, "I'll walk away next time." but transformation happens the moment you actually do. Words are gentle, actions are sharp, and transformation doesn't respond to language, it responds to repetition. Many live in the illusion that self-talk is enough. They repeat affirmations, declare change, and rehearse bravery. But when life tests them, when disrespect appears, when emotions flare, when someone crosses the line, they fold. Not because they're weak, but because they mistook intention for discipline. Stoicism doesn't care what you say you believe. It reveals what you do when no one is watching. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." In other words, the doing is the philosophy. Talking about peace is easy when life is quiet. Talking about emotional control is easy when you're not provoked. But how you act in chaos, that's your training, that's your truth. Speaking of calmness is not calmness. Posting about boundaries is not setting them. Saying you've moved on is not the same as walking away without bitterness. Real growth is silent, consistent, and inconvenient. It doesn't wait for applause. It doesn't need a witness. It's a contract with yourself that's renewed each day through deliberate action. Think of it like a sword. You can study its shape, recite its history, admire its design, but until you lift it, feel its weight, swing it in practice, you've learned nothing of battle. In the same way, you can quote Epictetus, journal your goals, plan your mornings. But if your feet never move, you remain the same. Saying "I value my peace" means nothing if you keep answering chaos. Saying "I respect myself" is hollow if you still chase validation. Words soothe the ego. Actions shape the soul. Transformation demands cost. That cost is action. Unseen, uncelebrated, sometimes uncomfortable. It's waking up early when no one's watching. It's staying silent when provoked. It's walking away when your pride wants to stay and argue. These are the quiet rituals of change. Not flashy, not loud, just repeated. Until one day you look back and realize you've become the person you once only described. We get addicted to describing our change because describing feels like progress. It's not. It's a rehearsal. The body doesn't change until the behavior does, and behavior only changes when belief meets friction and doesn't retreat. You don't know if you're calm until something tests your calm. You don't know if you've let go until life offers you a chance to pick it up again, and you don't. Next time you want to talk about change, stop. Show it. Prove it by how you react, by what you walk away from, by what you no longer tolerate. Let your silence explain your evolution. Let your behavior make the announcement. Growth that doesn't need to be spoken of is the most solid kind because it's not a performance, it's a practice. So speak less of what you intend. Do more of what you must. Don't tell the world you're becoming strong. Show them by no longer breaking where you used to. Let your new self respond where your old self would have collapsed. That's the real language of transformation. Not poetry, not declaration, but discipline. And if you're quiet enough, you'll feel the difference in your bones. Not in what you say, in what you do. Over and over, until you become the proof. 8. You have 2 ears, 1 mouth. Use the ratio. Some people speak not to connect, but to control. They flood the silence with opinions, explanations, and justifications, believing that the louder voice wins. But true power doesn't make noise. It watches, it listens, and it waits. In a world addicted to expression, the rarest strength is restraint. When you speak less, you hear more, not just others, but yourself. And in the gaps between your words, clarity begins to speak. We weren't made with 2 ears and 1 mouth by accident. Nature isn't careless with its designs. Listening is not passive, it's an active discipline. It requires humility to quiet your ego and strength to resist the urge to fill every silence. People often confuse silence with weakness, but in Stoic philosophy, silence is structure. The disciplined mind knows saying less protects your peace, guards your energy, and sharpens your perception. Marcus Aurelius didn't need to scream to command respect. Epictetus taught that you should be mostly silent or speak only what is necessary and in few words, not to seem wise, but to be in control. Think of a storm. The thunder makes noise, but it's the still pressure before the storm that changes everything. Likewise, emotional reactivity is loud, but emotional mastery is still. When someone insults you, the natural urge is to explain, defend, or retaliate. But what happens when you don't? When do you let the silence carry your answer? It stuns. Because silence is not the absence of a response. It is a deliberate one. It says, I see, I understand, and I rise above. We lose battles not because we don't speak, but because we speak too soon. The mind races to justify, to correct, to win. But in that rush, we often reveal what should have remained private. Your inner thoughts don't always need an audience. The strongest minds know when to hold. They protect their peace like a fortress, by making speech an intentional act, not a reflex. Sometimes, people will test your boundaries just to hear the sound of your defense. But true emotional discipline doesn't react to provocation. It chooses presence over performance. It asks, is this worth my energy? Is this aligned with my character? If not, it walks away, not in fear, but in power. Silence doesn't mean submission. It means you no longer place your dignity up for debate. You've stepped out of the emotional casino. You don't gamble your peace anymore. It's not easy. Silence can feel like surrender at first, especially when you've been conditioned to explain yourself for survival. But with practice, silence becomes a boundary, a shield, a declaration, not of weakness but of wisdom. You begin to choose your words the way a sculptor chooses each chisel stroke, knowing that too much, too fast ruins the shape. Precision becomes your language, and in that, you start to build unshakable inner peace. Start with one moment today. When someone irritates you, don't rush to speak. Feel the urge rise. Observe it, then let it pass. Breathe. Remain grounded. Say less or say nothing. Let your presence, your posture, your stillness do the speaking. Over time, this practice rewires the nervous system. You begin to feel a shift, from needing to be heard to being anchored in knowing. The more you listen, the less reactive you become. And the less reactive you are, the more powerful your presence becomes. You don't need to argue to be right. You don't need to speak to be understood. You don't need to prove your worth to anyone. Just listen, deeply, without agenda. And when the time does come to speak, your words will carry weight, not because they're loud, but because they've been earned through silence. That's how you turn 2 ears and 1 mouth into your greatest tool for discipline, clarity, and unshakable strength. 9. If you depend on applause, you won't get far. A man once climbed a mountain and shouted from the peak, waiting for the echo to come back louder than his own voice. When it didn't, he climbed another, this time with more effort, more noise. Still no echo loud enough to fill the emptiness inside. That's what happens when you build your life waiting for applause. You become a performer on every stage, desperate for validation that never lasts. Applause is addictive, but it's also empty, because the crowd that cheers you today forgets you tomorrow. In the Stoic view, true strength is measured not by how loudly others praise you, but by how quietly you move without needing them to. When Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid," he was cutting through the illusion. Growth is rarely glamorous. It is often misunderstood, invisible, and slow. But when your actions are rooted in integrity, not applause, you no longer bend to opinion, you stand on principle. Think of the tree that grows in silence. No spotlight, no claps, but every day it digs deeper. And when the storm comes, it doesn't collapse, it endures. You too must become like that, because depending on applause makes you fragile. It turns your energy outward. It makes you dance for attention rather than walk with purpose. You begin to ask, am I doing this because it's right or because I want to be seen doing it? That is a dangerous place to live, because the moment the applause fades, so does your sense of worth. When you build emotional discipline, you no longer crave the noise. You begin to value quiet progress, internal approval, self-respect over external recognition. This is the foundation of power that doesn't shake. The Stoics trained for this, to act with virtue regardless of how it was received. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire yet wrote to himself as if no one was watching, because that's when truth speaks. In the absence of an audience, in the stillness of solitude, you will be misunderstood. You will go unseen. You will give your best, and some will not even notice. But if you're grounded, none of that matters, because applause is temporary, but character is permanent. And when you're rooted in purpose, your value doesn't fluctuate with the cheers or the silence. It stays whole. There's a subtle slavery in chasing approval. You change your words to please. You shift your path to avoid disapproval. Slowly, you stop living. You start performing. And the tragedy is, most people applauding don't even understand what you're building. They just want a show. So stop giving them one. Start giving yourself a quiet life of intention, where every action is its own reward. From this day forward, catch yourself in moments when you're about to post, speak, or act just to be seen. Pause. Ask, if no one ever knew I did this, would I still do it? If the answer is yes, proceed. If the answer is no, let the silence have it. This habit rewires your identity from the outside in. You go from needing validation to giving it. You go from chasing noise to becoming a calm force in a chaotic world. Real transformation isn't loud. It happens in the dark when no one is clapping and you still keep showing up. The Stoic doesn't announce his virtue. He lives it. And when you no longer depend on applause, you begin to hear something greater, your own clarity. That sound is steady, silent, and unshakable, and it will carry you farther than applause ever could. 10. If you do it for yourself, you don't need to say it. A candle does not announce its flame, it simply burns. But in a world addicted to attention, the quiet act is mistaken for insignificance. We've been conditioned to declare everything: our plans, our progress, our pain. The louder the announcement, the more real it seems. Yet the Stoic sees through this illusion. He understands that what is done out of truth does not require applause, defense, or explanation. If it's for yourself, it doesn't need to be spoken. Much of our exhaustion doesn't come from doing, but from trying to be seen doing. We twist simple acts of self-respect into performances for others' approval. We work out and post. We help someone and hint at it. We take a break and explain it. What would happen if you simply did it and said nothing? That's not weakness, that's inner freedom. The kind that doesn't crave witnesses because the act itself is enough. When Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one, he wasn't preaching, he was returning home to action without performance. Imagine someone who builds a garden in the middle of the desert. No camera, no audience, just the joy of planting. That's what self-alignment feels like. You are no longer living to be approved, you are living to be true. And once you reach this mindset, your energy shifts. You no longer dilute your intentions through explanation. You act with quiet confidence. You walk through life without marketing every step. And suddenly your peace returns. Not because the world changed, but because you stopped outsourcing your meaning. Silence is not weakness, it's containment. It's knowing your energy is precious, and not everything deserves access to it. Each time you overshare, over-explain, or over-prove, you bleed power. Your presence weakens because your need to be understood becomes louder than your need to stay grounded. The Stoic sees the danger of this. He does not announce, he acts, and through action, his identity is forged. So ask yourself, if no one ever found out, would you still do it? Would you still grow? Would you still walk the same path if applause never came? That's where the truth lies. When you act from clarity, not from craving. When you choose integrity over image. This is how strength is built. Not in being seen, but in being consistent when no one watches. Don't waste your energy narrating your evolution. Live it. Let your silence carry the weight of your choices. Because when you need to speak less about what you're doing, it means you're finally becoming it. Quiet people aren't weak. They've learned that peace speaks louder than performance. They've stopped defending their life. They're too busy living it. The next time you're tempted to post, announce, or justify, pause, breathe. Ask, is this for them or for me? If it's truly for you, let silence protect it. Let your discipline be invisible, your values private, your growth quiet. The deepest power needs no stage. It needs only one thing, your full attention. Do it for yourself. And let that be enough. Because the man who can walk in silence, act without needing to be seen, and grow without needing to be praised, is free. He's not hiding. He's focused. He's not avoiding connection. He's choosing alignment. And that, in this loud world, is the rarest kind of strength. In a world obsessed with external validation, choosing silence is a radical act of self-mastery. Today, we've explored one of the most overlooked truths in personal growth. When your actions are grounded in self-alignment, they no longer demand applause. If you do it for yourself, you don't need to say it. This isn't just a poetic idea, it's a practice of emotional discipline. of reclaiming your power from the noise. Stoic wisdom reminds us that inner peace isn't built by convincing others of our worth. It's built by becoming so anchored in our values that external opinions lose their grip. Every time you act without needing to be seen, every time you move without broadcasting, you are rewiring your mindset for unshakable inner strength. This is emotional self-sufficiency. This is a quiet confidence. But reflection alone is not enough. Let this not be a moment of temporary motivation, but the start of a new daily habit. Begin small. Take one action today that aligns with your values, and don't speak of it. No post, no proof, no performance. Let it live in silence. And feel the strength that grows when you don't need to explain yourself. If you've ever struggled with the need to be understood, to be praised, or to be approved, this is your invitation to let go. True self-worth is built in solitude. And the more you protect your peace, the more powerful your presence becomes. Practice this daily. Guard your energy. Reclaim your focus. And in that silence, you'll find clarity, dignity, and unshakable freedom. Now, we invite you to share. What's one thing you've done recently just for yourself, without needing to tell anyone? Let us know in the comments, and if this message resonated with you, pass it on to someone who needs this quiet strength.